Want to get Elden Ring Night Reign for 12% off or Destiny 2's Year of the Prophecy expansion pass for 16% off? Well, you can, thanks to this video sponsor, Green Man Gaming. Those discounts apply to both the standard and deluxe versions of those games, and they're only available for a limited time, so get in quick. Click the link below to start saving or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers, there is a lot of sad, disappointing news to cover in today's show, so I'd like to begin with a crowd pleaser. Making fun of Randy Pitchford. We're playing the hits right here. Let's go. This fucking guy, oh my god, he is the single worst hype man in the business. He seems to lead his studio well. He makes good products. He doesn't stuff them full of egregious cash shops and live service bullshit, but my god, whenever he opens his mouth, it is a category 6 PR shitstorm every time. Case in point, Randy was recently asked on social media about the possibility of Borderlands 4 costing $80, which is not confirmed to be the case, by the way, but it is a possibility right now since both Nintendo and Microsoft have flagged that at least some of their future releases would cost $80, leading to speculation that other publishers would follow their lead. A Twitter user said to Randy, quote, "Randy, this game better not be $80. Don't take that risk. A lot of gamers aren't going to pay $80 and feed this notion of constant increase of the price tag. You are the CEO, you have some say with the price when it comes to your publisher," end quote. Randy started off relatively strong, saying, quote, "It's not my call," end quote. And Randy, if you'd have left it there, mate, we'd understand. In fact, you might have even bought yourself some plausible deniability in the event that 2K does jack the price to $80. But no, Randy was concealing the prestige in point B, quote, "If you are a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen." My local game store had Starfight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen, end quote. This fucking guy. I can only imagine your average Gearbox employee working like late nights to make Borderlands 4 the best game it can be, only to have the boss blast out the PR equivalent of explosive diarrhea. And please, spare a thought for the actual PR people who need to clean this mess up. Imagine telling people who are strapped for cash right now that they aren't real fans of the video game you're about to release. It's just like, I don't even have words, right? Like, Randy truly stands alone as the undisputed king of, that one should have stayed in the drafts, my dude. So, Randy's got 99 problems, but plagiarism ain't one. Unlike Bungie, where plagiarism seems to be at least 4 of their problems, but then again, I think their problems number well above 99 at this point, so I guess it's all relative. What the hell am I talking about? Well, by now, you've no doubt heard about the stolen art scandal that has completely poleaxed Marathon and, by extension, Bungie. If you haven't, then here are the details. Bungie is a game developer founded in 1991 in Chicago, Illinois. Wait, I think I'm starting too far back. Let's fast forward a bit. 2 years ago, Bungie revealed the extraction shooter they'd been working on for a number of years prior. It was, in my opinion, one of the slickest, coolest looking, most captivating reveal trailers of all time, with S-tier music and visual design that was so fresh that it immediately caught everyone's attention. The prospect of a PvP extraction shooter didn't excite many people, but even Bungie's most strident critics had to agree the art design was on point. Fast forward to a few months ago when creators and alpha testers got their hands on Marathon, a lot of mixed reception to the game for myriad reasons, but the people that were vibing with Marathon were very often doing so because they were fans of the setting and the art design, which was a lot more divisive in reality than it was in the reveal trailer, but it was still entirely unique and original. Or so we thought. Earlier this week, an artist by the name of Fern Hook, who goes by the handle Anti-Real, took to Blue Sky to allege that Bungie had wholesale stolen some of her art and included it in Marathon without her permission, and certainly without compensating her. Quote, "The Marathon Alpha released recently and its environments are covered with assets lifted from poster designs I made in 2017. Bungie is of course not obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I have refined for the last decade, but clearly my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over the game without pay or attribution. I don't have the resources nor the energy spare to pursue this legally, but I've lost count of the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to imitate or steal my work than write me an email. In 10 years, I've never made a consistent income from this work, and I'm tired of designers from huge companies mood boarding and parasiting my designs while I struggle to make a living," end quote. In these instances, it's often natural to assume that a company might have copied an artist's homework, but then made some changes in an effort to pass that work off as their own. But not in this instance. Anti-Real posted clear side-by-side comparisons showcasing the fact that elements of her work were lifted and dropped with the old-fashioned Control-C, Control-V treatment. No adaptation whatsoever, it just went straight in. Various threads have gone on to showcase these examples in more detail, but we really didn't need more proof because soon after the accusations were made, Bungie came clean. posting on their Marathon Team social account instead of their far more followed Marathon official or Bungie accounts. The official statement reads thusly, quote, "We immediately investigated a concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included these in a texture sheet that was ultimately used in-game. This issue was unknown by our existing art team, and we are still reviewing how this oversight occurred. We take matters like this very seriously. We have reached out to Anti-Real to discuss these issues and are committed to do the right thing by the artist. As a matter of policy, we do not use the work of artists without their permission," end quote. So, about that last bit, it would be kind of embarrassing for your large AAA studio worth $4 billion to get caught stealing art from a struggling artist. But you know what would be even more embarrassing than that? Getting caught doing it 3 more times. But believe it or not, this latest fiasco is the 4th time that Bungie has used art assets without crediting or compensating the artist from whom they were sourced. The first was in 2021, when Bungie used fan art from someone who goes by Relay314 in one of their Destiny 2 trailers. In 2023, Bungie used Element J21's artwork in a Destiny 2 cutscene without their permission, and as you can see, it wasn't exactly subtle. It was like a full-on copy and paste job here as well. As recently as 2024, Bungie was caught using the work of an uncredited and uncompensated artist who goes by Tofu Rabbit in the design of their Nerf Ace of Spades gun. Bungie did end up resolving the matter with the artist, but Tofu Rabbit has their own thoughts on this most recent scandal. Quote, "This is not just a texture sheet like they said in their public statement. This is so much worse, and it keeps getting worse. Art director had to know and blatantly ignored this, or even worse, actively facilitated it. This should never ever happen in a professional studio. Gross," end quote. And that's the thing, if this was a first-time offense for Bungie, I think people would have at least a little bit of sympathy for them, but 4 times? That is a pretty tough sell. And look, I personally don't buy the suggestion that Bungie's senior leadership team are knowingly stealing art and trying to get away with it. I don't think any of them are that stupid and or malicious. Like, of course, if you copy and paste very obvious art assets, the people who made those assets are going to notice at some point, and you're going to be called out for it. But it's clear that whatever process Bungie is relying on to vet their asset pipelines or mood boards or whatever, it's not working, as too much is slipping through the net, resulting in embarrassing situations like this. Regardless of whether this was ill intent or carelessness, the net result is pretty dire for Marathon, because this scandal is a bit of a knife to the heart of the one thing that was keeping the hype for Marathon alive: the art design. The truth is, the game does not have a compelling gameplay hook. It's just not there yet. But the visual design has proven to be a huge drawing card for many, myself included. And it's obviously much more difficult to be enthused about that art design with all of this going on around it. But I do think that the conversation has gone a little too far. Many have alleged that Marathon's entire style was based on work stolen from Anti-Real, and that's just not true. There's no denying that it's inspired by the sort of art that Anti-Real is doing, but that style is not specific to Anti-Real. It borrows a lot from a style known as vector art, which got its start in the mid to late 1990s and was pioneered by the likes of Designers Republic with their work on the Wipeout games. Since then, many artists have adapted that style in their own way to their own projects. Here's an example from 2015 from an artist named Joseph Cross, aka the current Marathon art director. Designs like this are a decade old now, and they predate the point at which a Marathon reboot was even a twinkle in Bungie's eye. Still not convinced? This is an example that went up on Cross's art station 11 years ago. And that shit is just straight up Marathon. So yeah, obviously Cross and his team were careless with their quality control. Obviously someone either intentionally or unintentionally used Anti-Real's work when they shouldn't have. And obviously Bungie should be held to account for that, and Anti-Real properly compensated. But to suggest that the whole art style is stolen, I think that's unfair to the dozens of artists who have worked on this thing since its inception. Still, the fallout from all of this has been pretty devastating for Marathon's prospects. I mean, first of all, there was a live stream scheduled, and against what I'm sure was very good advice, the stream went ahead, and the vibes were slightly below that which you are likely to experience in your average funeral parlor.
It came to our attention that an artist who worked on Marathon in the early stages of pre-production took a number of graphic elements from a graphic designer without permission or acknowledgement, and placed them on a decal sheet that was then checked in 2020. The decal sheet included icons and text elements. These elements ended up in our alpha build, and there's absolutely no excuse for this oversight.
While this all was happening, chat was popping off big time, with most participants spamming the phrase "plagiarism will make me God," a riff on the game's signature marketing line. As sad as this situation is for all involved, I do have to admit, "plagiarism will make me God" is pretty funny. Chat wins this round. Even crazier, there were plans to show new gameplay during this livestream, but because all of the assets need to be audited, they couldn't show any of that for fear that new plagiarism would be discovered. So all the stream was just two sad dudes with nothing to show and no real updates on the game being dunked on over and over again by a chat that were absolutely on their A game. Like I said, not a great call to go ahead with that stream. So what does this mean for Marathon? Well, nothing good. As I said in the intro to this block, the art style was like the thing that Bungie and their fans were really hanging their hat on when it comes to Marathon. And even though the art design wasn't entirely plagiarized, as some have claimed, the whole situation just leaves a bad taste that makes it difficult to think about the art design without also thinking about the plagiarism. This was not what this game needed right now because, as we've discussed before, the hype for Marathon was kind of on life support already. Like, the alpha did not go super well, particularly when it comes to returning player counts and overall player feedback. Some people liked it, sure, but if you compare the reception that Marathon got to the reception that Arc Raiders got, then it is chalk and cheese, man. Like, and these are two games that are directly competing with each other, mind you. Paul Tassi of Forbes spoke to an undisclosed number of Bungie staff speaking on the condition of anonymity, and they weren't feeling great. Quote, morale is in freefall across all departments, and the vibes have never been worse. Everyone has the same concerns about what happens to Bungie as a studio if Marathon bombs, which is something they absolutely cannot afford, end quote. Tassi also reports that Bungie are making a number of on-the-fly changes to their marketing plans and testing schedules, all of which would make the planned September release date seem wildly ambitious at this point. And yeah, look, you can certainly see why Bungie might want to take a breath for a moment, sort out all these issues, and then maybe take another swing at re-revealing the game next year. Clearly, this initial rollout has not worked, and given the long-term ambitions both Bungie and Sony have for this one, it certainly would make a lot of sense for them to pump the brakes. I tell you who can't be happy about any of this, Sony. They bought Bungie for $3.8 billion a little while back, and that sounds like absolute insanity at this point. It was spending that was part of Sony's regrettable lurch to the live service market, which, other than Helldivers 2, has really only delivered Sony shareholders big handfuls of heartache and losses. It seems like another one of those handfuls might be on the way in the form of Fair Games. Remember that one? No, you absolutely do not, so let me jog your memory. This was revealed quite some time ago now, and it looks to be a sort of Payday-esque thing, except edgier. You know why? It's because the S is a $sign. Fuck yeah, take that, capitalism. Anyway, this game is being developed by a newly formed studio called Haven, and that studio was founded by Jade Raymond, who had a strong track record in studio leadership and management, having led the studios that shipped Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, as well as a number of other Ubisoft titles. In 2015, she founded EA Motive, which has gone on to be a very successful outfit in its own right, but she left that in 2019 to lead Google Stadia's internal game-making efforts, and we all know how that went. She then founded Haven in 2021, and the studio was then acquired by Sony in 2022. At the time, Sony's head of worldwide studios, Herman Holst, had this to say, quote, "What Haven has created is so exciting for us. There was a desire to deepen that relationship. We've been very impressed with how Haven is coming together," end quote. Well, fast forward to this week, and Jason Schreier of Bloomberg broke the story that Jade Raymond was leaving Haven. That's obviously a huge deal on the face of it, but it gets worse because according to Schreier, her exit follows external testing of Fair Games, where the feedback received was not great, to the point where developers were, quote, concerned, end quote, about said feedback. That is not what Sony wants to be hearing right now after releasing Concord last year and struggling to release Marathon this year and cancelling like 6 other live service projects in the last 2 to 3 years. But you want to know the saddest part of this story? Apparently, Haven have dropped the $sign from the title. Farewell, Sweet Prince, gone too soon with the $sign, of course. Sony's live service ambitions have clearly cost them billions of dollars with little to show for it, but they do have a strategy to dig themselves out of this mess: more live services. Last week, they announced the formation of a new studio working on a new live service title. Now, this isn't actually as surprising as you might think. The truth is, when those big Bungie layoffs happened a little while ago, Sony said that they were taking one of Bungie's incubation projects, which at the time was called Project Gummy Bears, and they were going to take the people working on that project and then spin all of that out into a new separate studio. And this is that new separate studio, which is now called Team LFG. Sadly, it is not the modern acronym, which denotes expletive-laden excitement, but rather the old acronym, which you spammed endlessly at 2 a.m. in Orgrimmar region chat when you needed an LBRS run. I gotta give their announcement credit, since it seemed to sidestep a lot of the bullshit packed into most other live service announcements. Quote, "We want our players to love remembering that one time where they pulled off that play that changed the whole story of the match. As we say on the team, that's the good stuff." I'm sorry, I can get through this. Our first game is a team-based action game that draws inspiration from fighting games, platformers, MOBAs, life sims, and frog-type games. Players will inhabit a lighthearted comedic world set in a brand new mythic science fantasy universe. We can't wait to reveal more, end quote. Honestly, You had me at that's still good stuff, but then you really exceeded expectations with the frog type reveal. I'm all in, baby. Where do I enter my credit card details? I need a battle pass stat. A quick lightning round to finish off, and we may as well polish off on the last of the PlayStation news. Remember how Herman Holst and Kojima announced Fizzant a little while ago? Kojima's return to the tactical stealth genre. Well, this past week, Kojima told a French publication that Fizzant is approximately 5 or 6 years away. So yeah, that's disappointing. But when it does arrive, at least that old "kept you waiting, huh?" meme is gonna feel really on point. Let's move on. Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann has revealed that his studio is working on not one, but 2 games: Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet, and one other unannounced title. Speaking to the Press X to Continue podcast, Druckmann said this, quote, "Then there's another game that's being worked on at Naughty Dog where I'm in more of a producer role and I get to mentor, watch this other team, and give feedback and be the executive in the room," end quote. No word yet on what that other title is. Hopefully, it's a Jak and Daxter reboot, but I certainly wouldn't bet my house on it. Helldivers 2 developer Arrowhead say they'll fund their next project themselves, which is a little weird given how successful Helldivers 2 was. Arrowhead CEO Shams Georgiani had this to say, quote, "The next game is 100% funded by ourselves, so we'll call 100% of those shots. PlayStation are great. There would be no Helldivers if it wasn't for them. We're open to work with them again in the future. They're incredibly game dev oriented, solid partners, and this is me just saying it like it is, not blowing smoke up their asses," end quote. No word yet on what this other title might be, but obviously it ain't Helldivers 3, and you have to guess it's probably going to be something quite different since Helldivers 2 is intended to continue on as a live service. Stellar Blade is getting a sequel. No real surprises there, but what is surprising is that the sequel may be out as soon as next year. That's according to a presentation that the company made to shareholders, so this isn't some zany leak or whatever. Turnaround that quick would be surprising, but if the team were feeling confident in their tools and their setup and they had a clear vision for what they wanted to do, definitely more than possible. Speaking of sequels, we're getting our first details on the next Cyberpunk game, and it turns out we're going to be exploring more than just Night City. Cyberpunk creator Mike Pondsmith was speaking to a Polish outlet, and he said that while Night City is still there, players will visit a new city, which he describes as kind of like Chicago gone wrong. He was tight-lipped about other details, but it's nice to see the drip of Cyberpunk 2 details kicking off. Nintendo has confirmed that the Switch 2's variable refresh rate only works in handheld mode, not when docked. They say that, quote, "The incorrect information was initially published on the Nintendo Switch 2 website, and we apologize for the error," end quote. That's a real bummer, to be honest, and definitely a downgrade since depending on the game, you will sometimes get a smoother gameplay experience when playing in handheld versus docked, which is kind of a bit backwards. Speaking of handhelds, sort of, Fortnite is back on the iOS storefront. After a brutal game-changing defeat at the hands of Epic, Apple has been told that they can no longer tax alternate payment processes, which means that Epic were very keen to get Fortnite back up so they could start paying off those legal bills. Apple dragged their feet on that, but a judge ruled that Apple must reinstate Fortnite post-haste, and they did that. So now you can listen to AI Darth Vader say racial slurs on mobile. More on that later. Some quick adaptation news now, and they're making a Clash of Clans movie. I do predict that it will make $1 billion at the box office, and I do wish I was joking. The Gears of War Netflix adaptation may have found a director in David Leitch, the guy who directed Fall Guy. Will Ryan Gosling be cast as Marcus Phoenix? God, I hope so. That would be so funny. And here's an adaptation that absolutely nobody asked for and nobody saw coming. Riders Republic is getting a movie. It's being directed by Adil El Arbi and Balil Falal, who directed the 2 most recent Bad Boys movies, and it's being written by Noe Debra, who previously wrote a Palme d'Or winning film called Deepan. The directors for this one sound about right, but if you're going to make a Riders Republic movie, it really should be written by someone whose credits include NASCAR-themed reality TV shows, not actual writers who wrote actual movies. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, boy oh boy, have I got great news for the weebs out there. This past week, Sega and Atlus announced a new Persona game that's coming to the West, and yep, you guessed it, it's a free-to-play mobile gacha game. Yay! Thanks, Genshin, for ruining everything. Yes, this is Persona 5, The Phantom X, which is a free-to-play mobile spin-off that was developed by Chinese developer Perfect World and was released in China and Japan last year. It's getting a global release on iOS, Android, and PC on June 26 this year, and it stars a new character that interacts with the case of Persona 5. Admittedly, this does do a good job of looking the part. It's got all the city exploration, after-school jobs, social link stuff, and the push-turn battle system. And apparently the last Shin Megami Tensei game on mobile wasn't bad either. But of course, the big caveat here is that the core of this game hinges around a mobile energy system that limits how much you can engage with it each day unless you pony up the dough, of course, as well as a gacha system to try to pull your favorite Persona 5 characters. If you're a Persona fan with good willpower, proceed with caution, and for everybody else, there are plenty of other great Persona and Shin Megami Tensei games you can play and replay that won't reduce you to relying on those microfinancing apps whenever you want to buy a burrito. Speaking of things that probably shouldn't exist, do you remember Blue Protocol? This was that Bandai Namco anime MMORPG that they were making with Amazon, but it was cancelled completely before it could get to that stage. But the development team getting laid off or put into isolation rooms until they voluntarily quit. And yes, that is a real thing that happened because Japan is low-key insane. Anyway, a Tencent subsidiary called Bokura ended up saying, hey, if you don't want it, we'll take it. And they spent the last year or so reinventing it as a free-to-play MMO. It's now called Blue Protocol Star Resonance, and it's planned for a global release sometime in 2025 for iOS, Android, and PC. Gonna be pretty funny if this thing blows up and makes billions after Bandai handed it over for what you have to assume was a bit of a fire sale. Another cool one from Devolver Digital this week, who seem to be picking up new games left and right at the moment. This one's called Shroom and Gloom, and it's a pretty cool looking acid punk first-person roguelike deck builder. Double deck builder. It's a dungeon crawler where you walk around with 2 decks of cards, one for exploration and one for fighting. As you dig deeper, fight a bunch of mushrooms and eat them, I guess. There's a demo out for it now. Give it a look. This one's slated for PC this year. All right, so you know how the Stalker games are buggy as hell, but everyone loves them anyway? Well, if you've yet to dive into Stalker 1, then you may be in luck because GSC Game World announced Stalker Legends of the Zone Trilogy Enhanced Edition last week, and it should be out on all platforms bar Switch by the time you're watching this. It's a free upgrade if you already own the games on console or PC, and it adds a bunch of refinements like different graphical and performance modes on console, as well as mouse and keyboard support and mod integration. On PC, the game's been optimized for Steam Deck, as well as getting better controller support and Steam Workshop integration. Do be warned though, some preliminary reviews for this one have released. PC Gamer says it's not great, so just be sure to look up some reviews. It's currently sitting at mostly negative on Steam, so I think that gives you an indication of where things have landed. A couple of release date announcements now. Lost in Random: The Eternal Die is the roguelike action spin-off of the EA Originals adventure game from a few years back. This one now has a date of 17th of June for all platforms, and yes, it does look a lot like Hades. By coincidence, many of the developers who developed that original Lost in Random game spun out and released The Midnight Walk last week. That was that spooky claymation title that's a bit more narrative heavy than this one. And while we're talking about games with a narrative lean, we'll give a quick shout out to Australian game Copycat, who were featured on the show a little while ago. This is the one where you play as a cat who's mistakenly left out in the cold when a stray lookalike takes its place and things get a little bit devastating. This one is getting a release on PS5 and Xbox Series consoles after coming out on PC last year. Look out for it on May 29th. One cancellation this week, and it's a big one. Activision is cancelling Call of Duty Warzone Mobile. Yes, the mobile version of Warzone was supposed to do big numbers, competing with the likes of PUBG and Fortnite if it was still on mobile, but it didn't hit its targets, and so Activision is binning it. It's technically still playable so long as you already have it on your phone, but if you don't, then that's bad luck because it's already been delisted and you can't re-download it. Even worse luck if you made some in-game purchases because there are no refunds being offered. Thanks, Bobby. Wait, he's not CEO anymore. Thanks, Phil. A while back, there were some reports that they had been planning for Warzone Mobile, which is developed internally at Activision, to supersede Call of Duty Mobile, which is developed by Tencent's Timmy Studio. Warzone Mobile barely lasted a year though. It came out last March, and now they're offering all the remaining players incentives to go and play COD Mobile. Think the name confusion had anything to do with it? So what came out last week? Well, the big one, of course, was Doom: The Dark Ages, which sees id Software taking some very big swings and trying something very different yet again with their modern Doom reboot. You may have seen my review by now, but if you haven't, the general gist is that I had a great time with it, even if I didn't vie with all of its auxiliary components like storytelling, dragon riding, and mech piloting. That sentiment was much the vibe with most of the critic reviews out there. Dark Ages currently sits at a mighty 86 on OpenCritic. Many of the reviews do have caveats. Take PC Gamer's review, they scored it a very solid 8 out of 10, saying, quote, "This is Doom at its most indulgent and deliciously violent, but it's also dumbed down and undeniably the easiest of the trilogy. Maps are uncharacteristically barren, secrets abnormally obvious, and puzzles so simple that they hardly fit the description. Viewed through the lens of loud feedback that insisted Doom Eternal was too complicated, Dark Ages is an overcorrection," end quote. I do agree with that sentiment, and in fact, I'll direct you to this really interesting video I watched on the Second Wind YouTube channel titled Doom: The Dark Ages Designers Think You're Dumb. It's a salacious title, but it's actually a really good video that highlights a number of the game's shortcomings. I don't agree with everything the author says, and many of the things bothered me less than they bothered him, but I do think that id needs to trust their audience a lot more than Dark Ages allows for, and this video does a good job of highlighting that issue. Anyway, I'll leave a link to that one below the like button. Moving on to Capcom Fighting Collection 2, which was last week's big release for people who talk way too much about how much they missed the Dreamcast. This is the collection of Capcom's slightly lesser known fighting games from the early 2000s, and it's come in at a mighty 84 on OpenCritic. Capcom seems to be getting better at these collections since there's a lot of praise heaped on how the games are emulated and how well they play online. And it's also benefited from having beloved but hard to get games like Capcom vs SNK 2, Project Justice, and Power Stone on there. GameSpot gave this collection an 8 out of 10, saying, quote, regardless of each game's individual quality, all of them benefit from incredible emulation. Capcom's ability to bring these games to the modern era in these bundles continues to be impressive. Nothing is lost in the process and very few issues are gained. These are the same feature-complete games we played when they originally launched, recreated faithfully, and it's laudable that Capcom takes such painstaking care in preserving its library, end quote. A Webbing Journey was our radar pick for last week. It's a 3D sandbox game where you get creative with your webs to solve challenges. This one had just come out at the time of writing, but it has received very positive reviews so far. Steam user Cadaver19 has put over 7 hours into it. Here's what they had to say, quote, it does wholesome without it feeling saccharine or too babyish. The physics are solid, fun, and easy to use. I didn't think that controlling a spider would be relatively easy, but it is, and it is a lot of fun to do. Cannot recommend enough, end quote. Also, shoutouts to Weird Lem Yankovic, who said, quote, this game made me dislike spiders a little bit less, end quote. Nothing a trip to Australia can't fix, my friend. Let's go from small to big again with some big trucking tractors. Yes, we're talking about Roadcraft from Saber Interactive, which has also earned itself a mighty 84 on OpenCritic, and honestly, I can kind of see it. I'm not really into these games, but it does look like a good time. Here's VG247, who have clearly played a lot more of the series than I have. They gave it 4 out of 5 and said, quote, Roadcraft offers a unique enough twist on the established spin tires formula, if a streamlined one, to be worth giving a go. Some series veterans will end up longing for the elements it stripped out, especially when the new stuff that's been drafted into it is more frustrating than fun, but that cool central loop of frustration giving way to jubilation as you overcome the environment is still there and regularly just as satisfying, end quote. Speaking of satisfaction, it looks like quite a few people are satisfied with Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. This is the sequel to the Nintendo 3DS life sim that predates Stardew Valley. It had a bit of a rocky development with 2 big delays and some key staff leaving. It doesn't seem like many Western critics were able to get their hands on this one, but plenty of other people ponied up for the version that gives you early access, and it's currently sitting at very positive on Steam ahead of its broader release, with over 1,200 reviews counted so far. Here's Steam user Sorafina, who has 8 hours on it so far, saying, quote, my first Fantasy Life, and I already get why people waited for this. It takes a little time to open up, but once I got to the desert and started running around as a party, pure joy. There's something so cozy about slicing monsters 1 minute, then daydreaming about being a chef, tailor, or angler the next. The vibe is sweet, colorful, and just the right mix of questing and chill downtime, end quote. So what's coming out this week? Well, it's another week of small games sneaking their way into the world before the behemoths take over, starting with Elden Ring Night Rain next week. So let's give these little guys their due. Thursday, May 22nd is a big day for many of these releases. Let's start with Duck Detective, The Ghost of Glamping, which comes out on all platforms. Stu really loved the first one of these. It's basically Curse of the Golden Idol, but with a bit more fluff. That fluff is a mix of hard-boiled noir and goofy comedy. It's a short game and definitely a good candidate for a night when you feel like you need a palate cleanser. That same day, joining the Duck are some turtles, which is to say that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tactical Takedown is dropping. The story behind this one is kind of cool, actually. Paramount basically gave the license to Strange Scaffold, that indie developer that puts out like 5 games a year, and let them turn around a small, focused game with it. Not something you see every day with these big legacy IPs, so that's definitely worth shouting out. As for the game itself, it's a turn-based tactics game that has the fast-paced feel of a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Basically, the stage keeps moving and so do you, keeping your aggression and combos up as you do backflips and take down foot soldiers. Ed really loved the demo for this one, and it sounds like it probably won't outstay its welcome. PC only at the moment. Let's stay cartoony with Linked Banner of the Spark. This is a co-op action RPG mixed with base building elements. It's been in early access for about 6 months now, and it's releasing into 1.0 on Thursday. It looks delightful at first glance. Your character has a sick hookshot arm. It's also worth noting that Dreamhaven picked up the publishing rights for this one a little while back. That's the publisher founded by Mike Morhaime, who's also put out Sunderfolk and are also putting out Wildgate, so it seems like they know a winner when they see it. PC, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles for this one. Next one is kind of cartoony in its own way. Deliver at All Costs. This is a wild driving action game set in the 1950s where you deliver a bunch of crazy stuff with your pickup truck and cause a bunch of destruction along the way. It looks like a lot of fun. Weirdly, this one is being published by Konami, who also have been backing a bunch of smaller games lately. Good on them. Hopefully this one does well, so Konami keep doing that. PC, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles for this one. Last one for Thursday. Hey, remember how awesome Metroid Dread was? Well, the developers behind that are releasing their own original game called Blades of Fire, and it's a third-person medieval fantasy action game that heavily revolves around the idea of you forging your own weapons with a bunch of properties to consider when doing so, all of which contribute to how it handles and performs in actual combat. Haven't seen too much of this one yet, but it's definitely a cool sounding idea with a solid developer behind it. Keeping an eye on this one for sure. Moving on to a rare Friday release now. Capcom is using the day to release the remaster of Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny. If you're too young to have played these, then you're probably not watching this show. But just in case you are, Onimusha rules, and it's basically like old school Resident Evil, except you're a magical samurai. This one comes to all platforms. Jumping over to next next week now, and we've got two very cute titles releasing on Tuesday, May 28th. First one is Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, which comes out on all platforms. This is a top-down adventure game in the vein of classic Zelda games, where you play as a rabbit, at least I think it's a rabbit, taking down corporate mob bosses with sick yo-yo tricks. It also features music from Yoko Shimomura, a legendary composer who scored soundtracks for Street Fighter 2, Mario RPG, and Kingdom Hearts. Last release for the week is from another Japanese legend, Keita Takahashi, the creator of Katamari Damacy. His new one is for Annapurna Interactive, and it's called 2AT. In his true signature weirdness, in this game, you play as a kid who's trying to get through everyday life while permanently stuck in a T-pose. Bethesda NPCs really know his pain. Also, there's a bunch of giraffes and a cute dog. Yes, it looks totally bizarre. Looking forward to hearing more about this one, PC, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles. Speaking of a unique looking game, put this on your radar. This is Sol Cesto, or Cesto maybe, and man, this art style kind of looks like if the Monty Python animators made Dark Souls or something. It's a very streamlined tactical roguelite RPG crawler where you need to plan around RNG to try to make it work in your favor. Each level is separated into a grid with enemies and treasures, and while you can select the row your hero tackles, probability determines which one you'll actually land on. It's basically a game where you sweat about XCOM shot probabilities, and though that sounds like hell, trust us, it's very, very Moorish, kind of like the art direction. It's really unsettling, but hard to look away from. This one's been floating around the convention circuit for a while now and has already won a couple of awards for gameplay innovation and interactive design. It launches into early access on Wednesday, 28th of May, but if you like the look of it, you can check it out over on our Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other Put This On Your Radar stuff we've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and as always, we start with those tricksters at Epic, who last week gave away a mystery game, and it ended up being Dead Island 2, which is honestly a really solid pickup. They also gave away Happy Game, which is yet another adventure game from those folks at Amanita Design. This time a horror one instead of a cutesy one. Next up, Epic is giving away not one, not two, but 3 mystery games next week, so we can't tell you what they are, but we'll tell you next week, so stay tuned. PlayStation announced their additions to the catalog for premium and extra tier subscribers, and there's a bunch of good Japanese games in there, including Sandland from Namco, Soul Hackers 2 from Atlas, Humankind from Enhance, and Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. There's also Stalker, Legends of the Zone Trilogy, which we mentioned earlier, as well as Battlefield 5. Nintendo is going full 90s gamey this week with the newest addition to their classics library. It's Killer Instinct Gold for the Nintendo 64. This is a classic from Rare, and I think it might be the most mature game on the service yet, at least until they finally put Conker's Bad Fur Day on there, which seems like it'll never happen, but I do like to dream. Our feel-good story for the week is definitely funny, but also complicated. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Fortnite have recently added an AI Darth Vader to the game. It relies on proximity chat, and so you can just talk to it, and using a combination of AI and the actual voice of the late, great James L. Jones, you can make Darth Vader tell you his McDonald's order.
If I were forced to endure such a culinary experience, I would take a chicken select meal with large fries and a Coca-Cola drink.
Now, obviously, this is complicated because AI voice work is the very thing that the SAG-AFTRA Guild is fighting against, since it does imperil the livelihoods of voice actors. In fact, they lodged a complaint against Epic when they saw this because Epic hadn't given them a heads up, and they claim that's a breach of the contract that they signed. It's a whole thing anyway. As risky as AI is for workers, it can be equally risky for the brands because at some point, someone is going to make Darth Vader say the things that Disney do not want him to say.
Freaking, fucking.
What?
Such vulgarity does not become you,
not
Padme.
allowed.
You inquire about sustenance,
Oh my god, no,
and
oh
yet
my
speak
god.
like a common thug.
So there you go. You've heard Darth Vader swear now, and that does feel like a good note on which to end the show. Thank you for sticking right through to the end. I do always appreciate it. If you had some fun, learned a thing or two, or maybe just because you feel like it, you might want to drop the video a like. Likes are our currency here on YouTube, so be sure to give generously when you can. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and that notification bell will make sure you never miss an upload. All our videos also go up on Spotify. You can listen to them and watch them over there. Plus, there are no ads if you're a Spotify premium subscriber. Austin recently played the June Survival MMO beta, so do look forward to some coverage on that going up over the weekend. I'm still working on that Claire Obscure video, to be honest. Something a little special in the works for that one, so do stay tuned. For now though, how would you like to save some money on Elden Ring Night Rain? Well, you can thanks to this video's sponsor, so be sure to stick around. Thanks again, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. Just this past week, Doom the Dark Ages launched, but did you know that a bunch of people got it 17% cheaper on day one thanks to one neat trick? It's not clickbait, though it definitely sounds like clickbait when I put it that way, but it's actually true, and it's all thanks to this video's sponsor, Green Man Gaming. And they're not stopping there, because they're also offering pre-release discounts on Elden Ring Night Reign and the recently revealed Destiny 2 Year of Prophecy expansion pass. Elden Ring Night Reign is FromSoft flexing their co-op multiplayer muscles, and Green Man Gaming are selling this one at a 12% discount. For those of you still out there playing Destiny 2, Bungie just revealed their content plans for the coming year. It's packaged up in their Year of Prophecy expansion pass, and Green Man Gaming are doing a 16% discount on that right now. And don't forget that that pass will give you instant access to the No Land Beyond sniper rifle. You may be wondering, what's the catch? Well, the truth is there is no catch. Green Man Gaming are one of the most established and most respected PC gaming retailers because they always offer excellent prices on PC titles, and they're not a grey market key reseller. Every single key they sell has been sourced directly from the publisher themselves, so there's no scammy stolen keys that end up getting cancelled weeks or months after you bought them. It's 100% legit. All the money goes directly to the publisher, and all the savings go directly to you. For many years now, Green Man Gaming has been one of the best places to pick up new release PC games because they're just cheaper almost every time. It's the same Steam key you'd buy from Valve. You plug it straight into Steam and it appears in your Steam library. It's just, 10, 12, 17% cheaper or more when you buy from Green Man Gaming. Over 6 million gamers have purchased from Green Man Gaming over the years. That's a lot of happy customers who have saved plenty of dosh thanks to Green Man's savings. Games like Doom the Dark Ages, Elden Ring Night Reign, and Destiny 2 Year of Prophecy are some of the biggest releases of the year, and GMG are selling them right now at the sort of discounts you typically need to wait months for. To start saving, click the link below. Be sure to click it so those discounts are applied to your purchase at checkout. 12% off Night Reign, 16% off Destiny 2 Year of Prophecy. So much more to check out too, so don't forget to take a look at Green Man Gaming's expansive catalog while you're there. Thanks Green Man for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.